Hello, and welcome to a video in which I will demonstrate bus compression and limiting in Pro Tools. This video is intended primarily for the intermediate music mixing students in my Hybrid Mix Techniques course at New England School of Communications at Hudson University. The first thing to learn about bus compression and limiting is that it is a normal part of the modern mixing workflow. It is used every day by almost every mix engineer, and thus it is a tool inexperienced engineers need to become familiar with and practice regularly. That said, mastering the use of bus compression limiting can be challenging for inexperienced engineers. Primarily, this is because compression can be hard to hear. A little goes a long way, and if you hear bus compression, you might be ruining your mix. So let's dive in and I'll demonstrate. We have a Pro Tools session here. It's a song called Decay, and it's been rough mixed in the Hybrid Mix Techniques course. And all the tracks are on the right side of the Pro Tools session. For some weird reason, I create my Pro Tools session so all the tracks are on the right side and the master faders are on the left. It's just weird, but it's the way I do it. And all these tracks here, they all feed the mix bus, and the mix bus has a master here. It's this aux return, and this is where I'm going to put on the bus compressors and bus compressor and limiter. And the processing, this master fader here, it feeds this print track so you can record the mix tube. From where I see it, we really have two big choices for bus dynamics processing. We can either use a compressor or we can use a limiter. And I'm going to start with a limiter. Earlier in this course, you have probably used the Waves L2. And the Waves L2 is what's known as a look-ahead limiter. It's very fast. It has a delay in the audio path where the audio is stored in momentarily while the control path analyzes the upcoming transients and can adjust the gain reduction in advance of the incoming audio. This makes the dynamics, the gain reduction, the processing quite transparent if used subtly. It's very, very fast. And it can be a very useful tool. And we're going to use not this particular processor, but a different one I think is actually a little bit more improved, albeit a similar design. And it has a similar name. It's also an L2, but it comes from a manufacturer called FabFilter. And this program is more fun to look at. It has a nice display of history of signal and all that. I'm going to adjust it so it looks nice and cool here. And these look-ahead limiters, as I said, they're quite fast, and often you adjust the input level to get a little bit of gain reduction. So now I've added 2 dB of gain, and I'm seeing some gain reduction. The other really big advantage of these limiters, not only are they transparent and fast, but you can very precisely control the output level. And this is a very useful feature in a mix. You can say, under no circumstances do I want an output less than minus 2 dB true peak. And this ensures that nothing will ever clip the D to A converters. So this is kind of a cool thing to do. Always set your output levels to be at no more than -1. Some people say -2. -1 is probably a safe place to be. But anyway, this is a powerful limiter. It's fast, it's precise, and my kind of like starting place for this, and this is again a recommendation for newbie mix engineers, is since it's hard to hear gain reduction, be pretty subtle with it. I would say don't attenuate more than about -4. You're free to go crazy and listen to it. What does it sound like? Squash. And I certainly receive projects like this from students. And you know what? I can actually hear bus compression, and it doesn't sound very good. One cool thing you can do with this particular processor is you can press this little headphone icon button, and you can hear all the side effects that are created or all the fidelity that's taken away when you process. And even when you do it subtly, you can kind of hear the little artifacts. So you definitely want to check that out. Sorry, I don't have it set up in this video for you to hear that, but with this plugin, it's a powerful feature. So again, I would say, just a few dB of limiting with these look-ahead limiters is about all you'll ever want to do. -4, I would say, is the max. And, there's no rule to this. I mean, you are free to squash a mix more. But if you're a newbie and you're new to bus compression and limiting, go subtle. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of distortion and pumping and breathing that you may not hear yet. So that's my suggestion. Go subtle. Now, another important thing to think about with bus limiting, and I didn't do it in this situation. Like in this situation, I opened up a pre-mixed song and added this limiter, is that you should always, in my opinion, always add the limiter or compressor that you're mixing through before you start your mix. And this is important because as you're setting fundamental components in your mix, the level of the kick drum, the level of the snare drum, the level of the bass, how the vocal sits into that balance, it's all being heard through the compressor, and you can go back to it and go, I'm squishing, you hear the effect on those choices. And as you're adding compression on the individual sources, like on the vocal or the kick and snare, they work together and you can hear the net result. So I really, really suggest you do this. But there's comes with that a workflow cost, and that is as you proceed with your mix and you continue adding guitars and keyboards and effects and automation, you have to go back regularly and visit that limiter again and again to make sure, is the setting you chose still correct? Because if you've turned up all the channels, you might see more compression than you originally wanted, or you might see less if you've turned things down. So you'll have to continue to return to the bus compressor regularly during the mixing process and ensure that it's still kind of set to where you want it. So, 3 rules I've given you so far. 1, set it to about -4, no more than that for gain reduction. 2, put the limiter or compressor on at the beginning of the mix. And 3, regularly come back to it so you can make sure it is still doing what you want. Now, an alternative solution to bus limiting is to try bus compression. And so let me bypass this limiter right now, and I will add a compressor. Now, there are a lot of plug-in and hardware options for compressors, and you can use almost anything. But a really popular one in the music mixing world is the SSL Bus Compressor. It's been around since the late 70s on SSL consoles. There's a lot of hardware versions of it. It's very popular. And there are, of course, lots of plug-in versions. And this is the Waves SSL compressor. And it does a pretty good job of sounding like a Waves or an SSL comp. And it actually kind of looks like it, and operationally, it's very similar. And of course, this is not a look-ahead limiter. It's not as fast as a look-ahead limiter. And its output level is not precise. In trade, though, the SSL can, it's slower, so it responds slowly to the incoming transients, and it will let a little spike of transient through before it gain reduces. And this spike, it adds what most engineers call punch to the mix. It lets the transients of the drums come through before the squash kicks in. And so you still get level control, but you get a little bit of punch out of it. And that's one of the big advantages of the slower than look-ahead limiter style compressors, is that they let punch through. A common term used for SSL is glue. This effect tends to glue a mix together. It kind of holds it. The term is what the term is. Some people call SSL compressors the glue. And you'll have to experiment with it to see this effect. Now, let's go through some settings and kind of talk about targets. Again, I would say no more than -4 dB. You're free to go big in the beginning and kind of hear what it sounds like. In fact, when it's over squash, and when you're doing that, it's not a bad idea to play with the attack and release controls to kind of see if you can mellow the effect and better set the attack and release to go along with the tempo of the song. But once you're done playing with it, you're going to want to bring the threshold back up so you see no more than -4. Now, this is the way I do it. Other engineers might go much bigger and might suggest much bigger, but try me out here for a moment and see how it works for you. Okay, moving on. Now that we've talked about the threshold, set your makeup gain so you get just a couple dB of makeup gain to kind of make up for the just a couple dB of gain reduction. Usually you want to set makeup gain to be relatively unity gain, so you can go in and out of the effect, and the compressor should sound the same kind of average loudness, whether it's compressing or in bypass. Set your attack. It is suggested that you experiment with it to kind of see how it fits in the song. I usually start with about 10 milliseconds of attack time, and this gives me a balance between super fast attacks, which don't have any punch but really control the mix, and longer attacks, which have a lot of punch but offer less control. Releases, longer releases are more transparent. If you want your compression subtle, increase it. One trick is to use the auto release, where a release time varies with the amount of compression being applied. I actually prefer that. For gain reduction, for ratio, you've got different approaches for different people. I usually go for less ratio, and I adjust my threshold so it's just doing pretty subtle compression. So in this case, I would use 2 dB. Oops, update. So that's kind of a quick overview of the compressor. I hope this demo has helped you out getting started and giving you an idea of where to go with your early explorations of bus compression and limiting on Music Mixes and Pro Tools. Have a great day. Thank you.